Before we create a pivot table using columns and rows and values, let's just quickly see the options that are available in this pane. Now, as you can see, I can move it away from the right side. And if you want to put it on the left side, we can simply drag it and then it attaches to the left side of our screen. If you want it to be a floating window, you can just keep it in the middle. And this allows you to just put it wherever you want to. And the moment you put it on the edge of the screen, it attaches automatically. On the gear icon, there are different options available. By default, all the columns that are picked up from the dataset come in the data source order. That's why you would notice that we get row ID, order date, shipping date, and not all the fields in an alphabetical order. In case you want to change that, you can simply select sort A to Z, and then this gets converted into an alphabetical list. If you are searching for a specific field, you can click inside the search bar. Let's say I want to search for segment, I can directly type that name. In our first pivot table, we want to keep our subcategory. So we can drag it like this and put it in rows. That's one option. If you want to remove it, you can just drag it outside on the sheet till you get that red cross sign and it gets removed. Another way to add it to rows is to simply right click and then say we want to add it to the row label. And another way to remove it would be to right click or rather click on this drop down and then say remove field. A lot of us are habitual to simply clicking on this checkbox, but I personally feel that's a bad habit because if you click on this checkbox, then you are not really controlling where you want that field to go. Like in this case, it automatically put it in rows, but what if you wanted it in columns? So to save yourself the trouble of a mistake happening, I would always recommend that you do not click inside this checkbox, but you drag and put it out of these four areas. The moment you put subcategory in rows, you can see a list of all the unique subcategories can be seen here. Let's increase the column width. Now, next to all the subcategory names, we also want to see the sales amount. So I can simply search for sales and then drag and put it in values. Now, by default, a pivot table will show the same number format, which is there in your data set. Now, because we had all these numbers with a decimal place, the decimal places can be seen. In case you want to remove it, we can click on home and then I will hide all the decimal places. By default, the data is sorted alphabetically. So you can see that accessories is at the top and tables is the last item. In the next lecture, I will show you how you can change it into a different sort order. In the design view, we have different things that we can do. The first thing that you would want to do is to click on styles and then choose a style of your choice. It just requires one click. And as you can see, there are multiple styles available. Next to this, you also have some pivot table style options. So you can create banded rows, which creates these borders around each of the rows. If I select a different style, let's say this one, you notice that every alternate row is colored differently. So we have a blue and white alternating color. If you want to not show the row header and the column header, you notice that there is a small subtle change that happens here. In the row header, you don't see a change because we don't have row headers right now. Let's keep one more element. Let us now put our category in columns. Now you notice that furniture has bookcases, chairs, furnishings, and tables. Office supplies has a few other subcategories, and technology has a few other subcategories. The column width will not be the same. So we can select the four columns, go to home, format, and then column width. And let's put in, let's say 15, and it looks a lot better now. We can also select the entire pivot and then align it in the center. But there's a bit of a problem. The problem is that the moment you make a change to the pivot, the column widths will go back to the original mode. For example, if you are putting, let's say, a market in filter, did you see what happened? Furniture, office supplies, technology is not the width that we had given. It gets converted back to an auto fit. How do you stop this from happening? By default, the columns will always auto fit, but if you don't want that to happen, you can simply right click inside any cell in the pivot table, click on pivot table options, and then there is a option called auto fit column widths on update, and you will have to turn this off. And this time, if you notice carefully, when I put market in filters, the column width doesn't change. It's a very small thing, but it's a very important setting that you have to change nevertheless, because if you don't do this, then no matter how nicely you have created your pivot table, every time you make a change, the column widths will keep on becoming larger or smaller, which you don't want. If you want to put category above our subcategory, now we have two rows here. The level 1 shows us category, level 2 shows us subcategory. And by default, you notice that both my levels are coming in a single column. But there are ways in which we can change it. On design, we have report layout, and there are three options available: show in compact form, show in outline form, and show in tabular form. Presently, we are showing it in a compact form. If you select the outline form, then my category is in column A and subcategory is in column B. And if we choose the tabular form, then it is very similar to my outline, but just a little different. So you can choose between number 2 and number 3. If you want to fill up these blank cells, again on report layout, you can select repeat all item labels, and then these blank cells are not shown, but the same category item is repeated. If you do not want to show these subtotals, in subtotal you can say do not show subtotals, and the subtotals are turned off so that it only shows you the individual sale amount for each of the subcategories. So that was a quick introduction of the interface of a pivot table. So we created our first pivot. I showed you how you can change the color, how you can add banded rows and banded columns, and also how you can mess around with the report layout.